Hi everybody. So to tackle the first part of the discussion post, I'm going to start with how in the documentary the narrator discusses how there are two kinds of knowledge that compete for public attention when it comes to the vaccine movement. One of them is from the collective scientific community and the other is personal anecdotes from parents. So I believe that the collective scientific community, their information falls under the perspectives of those that are positive surrounding the vaccine movement, and those constitute science, while those of personal anecdotes are from the perspectives of the anti-vaccine movement folks, and those constitute pseudoscience. So Paul Offit, who's the co-founder of the rotavirus vaccine, he actually discusses the pseudoscientific tendencies behind those who favor the anti-vax movement, which I thought was cool. So he talks about how the people in the anti-vaccine movement keep pushing the goalposts further and further back, and they just keep coming up with new hypotheses to, behind the cause of autism. So it started off with the MMR triple shot, then it moved to the thimerosal shot, and once those two were debunked by science, they switched to all vaccines. So just in general, scientific evidence just won't do for them. Generation Rescue is another pseudoscientific perspective in the film, and they used personal anecdotes like I mentioned earlier. And these anecdotes ignore scientific findings, and they associate correlation with causation, which is a problem in science in general, and is, again, a problem in this organization. And they're also backed by, celebrities, which give them more credibility, like Jenny McCarthy, who's a proponent of the movement. To get into the second part of the discussion post, talking about the merits of the anti-vaccine movement, I feel that an obvious one is that autism does present itself during the age when children receive the vaccines. But however, according to Dr. Eric Fombone, who's in the documentary, vaccines are given at an age when symptoms of autism first show up. Vaccines are given at certain ages, like ages 15 to 18 months. And that's the same time that children start to walk and develop language, which they fail to do so if they have autism. Dr. Fauci also goes on to support Dr. Fombone by saying that certain diseases become noticeable when a child reaches a certain age, which is basically what I said earlier, but that doesn't mean that cause and effect comes to play when it comes to vaccines and autism. I do feel that these are legitimate concerns by those of folks from the anti-vaccine movement, but they're not using scientific sound evidence to back up their opinions, and they're not also looking at knowledge on children's development. Dr. Wakefield is a GI doctor and researcher on vaccines and autism, his research was actually retracted and he was stripped of his medical license because his research was flawed, biased, and added to the pseudoscience of the anti-vax movement. So what was interesting is his empirical science-looking science was used to support the pseudoscientific movement, and it gave them more merit. Science does show that vaccines don't cause autism. The documentary talked about Danish studies that were performed where groups of children who received the MMR shot and the shot with thimerosal in it were compared against children who didn't receive those vaccines, and there was no difference in the rates of autism in both groups. I would say that also another merit of the anti-vaccine movement is the political attention that it gets. It wasn't really discussed in the documentary, but it gains credibility from being involved in politics, and when people of power are spearheading and fueling the fire of the anti-vaccine movement while ignoring scientific sound evidence, it gives them more credibility and more more credibility in general. So to talk about COVID-19 vaccine controversy. So there aren't a lot of recent articles. A lot of them are a year or more older since COVID-19 has somewhat calmed down since then. But people refuse to get vaccinated because they feel that this vaccine and this illness hasn't been around long enough, like other vaccines have, like polio. The fact that you can get COVID-19 after getting the vaccine makes people believe that it doesn't work. There have been less hospitalizations and less deaths, leading people to believe that they won't be hospitalized or die. And people feel that they're not harming others, they're just putting themselves at risk, which isn't true, and the documentary harps on that. But others are desperate to get the vaccine because either they're immunocompromised, a family member or close friend of theirs is immunocompromised, or they're just listening to the advice of the experts and the scientists who encourage people to get vaccinated. But what I would tell people about how to evaluate the science in favor of vaccinating is to take the source of information seriously. If it's from a hospital or the CDC or the World Health Organization, they don't have a political agenda. They're speaking straight from science. While there are other sources that tell you either to get vaccinated or mostly to not get vaccinated, and they do have a political agenda behind it. So overall, take the source of information that you're receiving it from seriously and look for credibility and trustworthiness. Thank you.